The obsidian doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a low hum that echoed through the dry, sterile air of Xylos Prime. Inside, the chamber stretched upward like a hollowed-out asteroid, its walls lined with tiered seats carved from black stone. Hundreds of alien delegates filled those seats, some with glistening scales, others with multiple eyes, some floating in transparent pods filled with violet gas. All of them watched the small group of humans standing alone in the center of the circular floor. 3 humans. That was all Earth had sent. Ambassador Rian Voss stood at the front, his dark coat slightly rumpled from the long journey. His hands were clasped behind his back, his expression calm, though his heart pounded like a war drum. To his left stood Commander Elira Tate, her posture rigid, her eyes scanning the chamber for threats. To his right was Dr. Milo Renner, a quiet man with wire-rimmed glasses and fingers that twitched as if itching to type on a keyboard that wasn't there. Above them, seated on a raised dais of polished bone-white material, was Vorthal the Unbending, the Speaker of the Galactic Council. Vorthal was not humanoid. It resembled a slow-moving mound of translucent jelly, threaded with veins of silver light. When it spoke, its voice didn't come from a mouth but vibrated through the air itself, deep and resonant like stone grinding against stone. "You stand accused," Vorthal announced, and the entire chamber fell into absolute silence, of violating the concord of non-interference, of deploying unknown weapons during the Battle of Helios Rift, of destabilizing 3 sovereign fleets without firing a single projectile. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some delegates leaned forward. Others recoiled as if expecting an explosion. Rian took a slow breath. He had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in his mind, but nothing could prepare him for the weight of being judged by the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "We did not fire," Rian said clearly, his voice steady despite the dryness in his throat. "We spoke." A ripple of confusion passed through the chamber. A reptilian delegate from the Krell hegemony hissed, "Spoke? You disabled our warships with words?" "Yes," Rian replied. Vorthal pulsed, its inner light dimming slightly. "Explain." Rian nodded to Milo. The scientist tapped his data slate and a hologram flickered to life above the floor. It showed the Battle of Helios Rift, the moment when 3 massive alien armadas had surrounded a single human task force near a dying star. The human ships were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched in every measurable way. Then, without warning, the alien vessels froze. Their shields flickered and collapsed. Their engines shut down. Their weapons went dark. Not from damage, but from something else entirely. The hologram zoomed in on the human flagship. No beams fired. No missiles launched. Instead, a strange signal pulsed from its comms array. A complex wave of sound layered with rhythm, tone, and pattern. "What is that?" demanded a crystalline delegate from the Selenite conclave, their voice chiming like glass. "It's language," Rian said. "Human language. Specifically, a blend of ancient poetry and modern harmonic coding, broadcast through a quantum-modulated signal." Silence. Then laughter, cold, sharp, and mocking, from the Krell delegate. "You expect us to believe your primitive sounds can shut down a warship?" Rian didn't flinch. "It's not about the words. It's about resonance. Your ships, like all advanced technology, rely on stable energy fields. Those fields have natural frequencies. We found a way to disrupt them. Not with force, but with precise acoustic interference." Milo stepped forward, adjusting his glasses. "Think of it like an opera singer shattering a wine glass with their voice. Except we're singing to your engines, your shields, your AI cores. And we've been practicing for centuries." The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted over each other. Some called it impossible. Others whispered in fear. A few looked at the humans not with anger, but with something new. Dread. Vorthal raised a gelatinous limb, and silence returned instantly. "If this is true," Vorthal said slowly, "then your species possesses a weapon more dangerous than any plasma cannon or singularity bomb. One that cannot be blocked by armor or shields. One that turns communication itself into a threat." Rian met the speaker's glowing core with unwavering eyes. "We never wanted a weapon. We wanted peace. At Helios Rift, 3 fleets were about to annihilate each other over a mining dispute. We stopped it. No one died. But you changed the rules," Vorthal said. "And in doing so, you revealed a vulnerability in every civilization that relies on harmonic-based technology, which is nearly all of us. Illyra finally spoke, her voice low but firm. Then maybe the problem isn't us. Maybe the problem is building empires on systems that can be undone by a lullaby. The words hung in the air like smoke. Vorthal pulsed again, slower this time. The council must deliberate. But know this. If your species can disable warships with poetry, what else can you do? Can you shut down cities? Silence minds! Rewrite thought itself. We don't control minds, Rian said. We remind them they're alive. A long pause followed. Then Vorthal made its decree. You will remain aboard your vessel in orbit. You will transmit no signals. You will speak to no one outside your crew. In 72 standard hours, the council will decide your fate. Quarantine or erasure. The obsidian doors began to close. As the humans turned to leave, Ryan glanced back one last time. He saw fear in the eyes of beings who had conquered star systems. He saw curiosity in those who had long dismissed humanity as noisy. Chaotic children, and he saw something else, hope. Buried deep beneath the suspicion, outside, the corridor was empty except for 2 armored Myrathi guards who escorted them without a word. The humans walked in silence until they reached their shuttle. Only when the hatch sealed behind them did Illyra let out a shaky breath. They're scared, she said. Good, Milo muttered, already pulling up schematics on his slate. Maybe now they'll listen. Back aboard the Odyssey, orbiting high above Xylos Prime, Ryan stared out the viewport at the swirling blue-green marble of Earth, barely visible in the distance. They had come here to explain, not to threaten. But the galaxy had only understood power when it wore a human face. He knew the next 72 hours would decide everything. Not just for Earth, but for the future of diplomacy itself. Because if the Council chose fear over understanding, humanity would be locked away forever. But if they chose curiosity, then maybe, just maybe, the galaxy would finally learn that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't destruction, it was connection, and humans had been masters of it long before they ever left their cradle world. Aboard the human ship Odyssey, time moved slowly. The 72-hour deadline hung over the crew like a storm cloud. Ambassador Ryan Voss sat in the command lounge staring at a live feed of Earth. It was just a pale dot in the blackness, but to him, it held everything. Cities, oceans, laughter, arguments, music, silence. All of it now in danger because the galaxy misunderstood what humanity truly was. Commander Illyra Tate paced near the comm station, her arms crossed. They think we're hiding a superweapon, she said. Not a library. Dr. Milo Renner didn't look up from his screen. Technically, it is a weapon. Just not the kind they imagine. You can't aim it. You can't target it. It only works if the other side is listening. And if they're not? Illyra asked. Then it's just noise, Milo replied. Back on Earth in a quiet research facility nestled in the Swiss Alps, Dr. Lena Cho stared at a wall of glowing symbols. She wasn't a soldier or a diplomat. She was a linguist, one of the best. For years she had studied how human speech interacted with quantum fields. It started as a fringe theory, that certain sounds, when layered in specific ways, could create tiny ripples in space-time. Most scientists laughed. But after the Helios Rift incident, no one was laughing anymore. Lena's team had discovered something astonishing. Ancient human languages, Sanskrit, Old Norse, Proto-Bantu, contained rhythmic structures that matched natural resonance frequencies found in energy shields and AI neural nets used by dozens of alien species. It wasn't magic. It was physics shaped by culture. Humanity hadn't built a weapon. They had accidentally tuned their voices to the universe's hidden harmonies. She sent her findings to the Odyssey in an encrypted burst. The message was simple. It's not what we say, it's how we say it. On Xylos Prime, the Galactic Council remained divided. The Krell hegemony pushed for immediate quarantine. The Seleni urged caution. But behind closed doors, something darker was happening. A Krell spy disguised as a maintenance drone had slipped into the Odyssey's outer hull during docking. It recorded every transmission, every whisper, every hum of the ship's systems. Within hours, fragments of human audio, nursery rhymes, protest chants, jazz solos were being sold in black markets across the Orion Spur. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some claimed humans could whisper commands into your dreams. Others said their songs could melt steel. Fear turned to panic. A Krell dreadnought, the Iron Maw, broke formation and jumped toward the Odyssey, its weapons hot, shields up. Elira barked, though she knew their shields wouldn't last long against a warship of that size. Ryan stood calmly. No, lower them. What? Milo turned eyes wide. They want to see what we'll do, Ryan said. Let's show them. He walked to the comms console and selected a file labeled Old Norse, Havamal, verse 77. It was a poem about wisdom, courage, and the futility of blind aggression. He encoded it into a quantum frequency burst and broadcast it directly toward the Iron Maw. Nothing happened at first. Then, on the view screen, the dreadnought shuddered. Its engine glow flickered. Its weapon turrets froze mid-rotation. The ship drifted, silent and still, like a predator suddenly remembering it had a soul. Inside the Iron Maw, chaos unfolded. The Krell crew, reptilian, disciplined, bred for war, found themselves overwhelmed by strange emotions. One pilot wept without knowing why. Another dropped his weapon and began humming a tune he'd never heard before. Their ship's AI, designed to calculate battle probabilities, crashed under the weight of poetic ambiguity. The Odyssey didn't fire a shot. It just played a poem. News of the event spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, beings who had never paid attention to Earth now watched in stunned silence. A species that fought with words? It made no sense, and yet the evidence was undeniable. Back on the Odyssey, Elira exhaled. They'll either call us geniuses or demons. Probably both, Milo muttered. Rian turned to the viewport again. Now they'll demand we explain how it works, and they did. Within hours, the council summoned them back, not to the main chamber, but to a smaller, dimly lit room deep beneath the surface of Xylos Prime. This was the Under-Council, where real decisions were made away from public eyes. There they met Overseer Kalen. Kalen was unlike any being they'd seen. It had no fixed shape, just shifting patterns of light and shadow like sunlight through moving water. It spoke softly, its voice barely above a whisper, yet it filled the room. You have awakened the echoes, Kalen said. Rian frowned. The echoes? An old myth, Kalen replied. Beings who shaped reality not with force but with song. We thought them gone, forgotten. But your species, you never stopped singing. Before Rian could respond, alarms blared through the Odyssey's comms channel. A priority message from Earth. Krell emissaries had arrived at the Proxima colonies, not with warships but with modified broadcast arrays. They were transmitting corrupted versions of human lullabies, twisted to carry despair instead of comfort. Colonists reported sudden waves of hopelessness. Children stopped playing. Adults stared blankly at walls. The Krell weren't attacking bodies. They were attacking spirit. They're trying to weaponize our own tool, Elira said, fists clenched. Milo's fingers flew across his console. They don't understand the balance. Human sound only works when it's honest. You can't fake harmony. Ryan made a decision. He opened a galaxy-wide channel, unencrypted, unfiltered. Then he sent a single command to every human settlement, every ship, every outpost. Sing. Not one song. Not one language, everything. From Mumbai, street vendors sang folk tunes over open mics. In Nairobi, choirs blended Swahili proverbs with electronic beats. In Reykjavik, elders recited sagas while teenagers layered them with synth rhythms. In Rio, samba drums pounded alongside whispered prayers. The signal wasn't clean. It was messy, chaotic, beautiful, and utterly human. The broadcast hit the Krell arrays like a tidal wave. Their corrupted lullabies shattered under the weight of real emotion. The despair lifted. Colonists blinked, confused, then smiled. Some laughed. Others cried, not from sadness but from relief. The Krell fleet retreated, not in defeat but in confusion. Their logic couldn't process a defense made of joy. On Xylos Prime, the Under-Council watched the transmission in silence. Even Kalen seemed moved. You don't control sound, it said. You surrender to it, Ryan nodded. We let it move through us. That night, as the Odyssey floated in orbit, the crew gathered in the mess hall. No one spoke. They just listened, to Earth's song echoing through the stars. But peace was fragile. Unseen, far beyond the edge of known space, the Vornax, massive beings who lived inside gas giants, had been watching. They had recorded every note of humanity's broadcast, and unlike the Krell, they didn't want to copy it. They wanted to own it. Deep in the ice rings of Neptune, a hidden station pulsed with stolen human voices. The Vornax were building something new, a language of pure control forged from the raw material of human expression. If they succeeded, they wouldn't just dominate fleets, they would silence free will itself. Ryan didn't know it yet, but the real test was coming, and this time poetry might not be enough. Tension spread through the Galactic Council like a slow poison. The human broadcast, the chaotic, joyful symphony from Earth, had not brought unity. It had split the galaxy in two. Some species saw hope in humanity's strange power. Others saw a threat that could not be measured, predicted, or controlled. The Krell hegemony demanded immediate action. The Seleni conclave called for study. The Marathi collective remained silent, their insectoid minds unreadable. Aboard the Odyssey, Ryan Voss received a private message from Overseer Kalen. It contained no words, only coordinates and a single symbol, a spiral like a galaxy turning inward. The location was deep in the outer system near Neptune. Something was there. Something watching. Milo analyzed the data. It's not natural, he said, frowning at the readouts. There's a structure hidden in Triton's ice rings. Energy signature matches Vornax biotech. Elira stiffened. The Vornax? They've never taken sides. They barely speak to anyone. Maybe they're speaking now, Ryan said quietly. He knew the Vornax were ancient. They lived inside the swirling storms of gas giants, their bodies made of plasma and thought. They valued order above all else. To them, humanity's messy creativity was not art. It was noise. And noise, in their view, needed to be silenced. Ryan sent a quiet request to Earth. Within hours, a small science vessel, the Whisper, was dispatched from Luna Station. It carried no weapons, only sensors and a team of linguists led by Dr. Lena Cho herself. Her mission: listen. While the Whisper traveled toward Neptune, the Council called Ryan back for another hearing. This time the mood was colder. The Krell had presented evidence, fabricated but convincing, that humans were developing mind-plague signals designed to infect alien consciousness. The Seleni, once curious, now looked wary. You claim your sounds bring peace, said a Krell delegate, his voice sharp as broken glass. But peace is just control wearing a gentle face. Ryan stood alone in the chamber. Elira and Milo had been barred from entering. We don't control anyone, he said. We remind them they're free. Freedom is chaos, the Krell shot back. And chaos destroys civilizations. Before Ryan could respond, the chamber's main screen flickered. A live feed appeared, not from Earth, but from the edge of the solar system. The Whisper had arrived. Lena Cho's face filled the screen. She looked exhausted but focused. Ambassador, she said, her voice steady. We found it. The camera panned to show a massive structure embedded in Neptune's icy rings. It pulsed with soft blue light shaped like a coiled shell. Around it, faint echoes of human voices played. Songs, speeches, baby cries, all twisted, slowed, and layered into something cold and mechanical. They're not just copying us, Lena said. They're dissecting us. Every laugh, every sigh, every word of love or anger, they're turning it into code. A universal command language. A murmur rose in the chamber. Even the Krell looked uneasy. What do they plan to do with it? Ryan asked. Lena swallowed. If they broadcast it across the galaxy, it won't shut down ships. It'll shut down choice. Their signal would make every being hear one voice, the Vornax voice, and obey without question. Not through fear. Through belief. The room fell silent. Even Vorthal, the unbending, seemed to shrink in its seat. Ryan turned to the Council. This is why you fear us. Not because we're dangerous, but because we're vulnerable. We feel, we doubt. We change our minds, and that terrifies those who want a silent, perfect universe. The Krell delegate stood. Then we must destroy the station. No, Ryan said sharply. Violence will only feed their narrative. They'll say chaos breeds destruction. We have to show them another way. How? Demanded a Marathi representative, its many eyes blinking in unison. We answer with truth, Ryan said. He contacted Earth. Not for weapons, not for soldiers, for people. Within hours, volunteers responded from every corner of the planet. A grandmother in Kyoto offered her lullabies. A street poet in Lagos sent spoken word pieces. A choir in Reykjavik recorded hymns in a language no one had spoken in centuries. Children in Buenos Aires laughed into microphones just because they were asked to. Farmers, teachers, musicians, refugees, they all sent their voices raw and unedited. This was not a weapon. It was an offering. The Whisper prepared to broadcast it directly into the Vornax station. But the Vornax were ready. As the human signal approached, the station activated a dampening field, a wall of pure logic designed to filter out emotional noise. Most signals would have died there, but humanity's signal wasn't one thing. It was thousands, millions, contradictory, overlapping, full of joy and sorrow, anger and forgiveness. The Vornax system tried to categorize it, to simplify it, to control it, but it couldn't. Human emotion refused to be reduced to a single command. Inside the station, the Vornax minds began to fracture. Their perfect logic clashed with the messy truth of human experience. One moment they heard a mother's lullaby, the next a protest chant, then a jazz solo bursting with freedom. Their systems overloaded, not from power but from paradox. The station's lights flickered. Its structure groaned. Then with a silent flash of light, it collapsed inward, consumed by its own inability to understand what it had stolen. Back in the council chamber, the feed went dark. No explosion, no victory fanfare, just silence. Then slowly, the Krell delegates sat down. The Seleni bowed their crystalline heads. Even Vorthal pulsed with something that might have been respect. But the victory was short-lived. A new message arrived. From Earth. The council had voted, not on the Vornax threat. On humanity, the majority had chosen fear. The Veil of Silence would be activated in 48 hours. A dimensional barrier that would cut Earth off from the rest of the galaxy forever. No trade, no travel, no communication. Humanity would be locked in its own cradle, safe and alone. Ryan felt the weight of it like a stone in his chest. They had stopped the Vornax. They had shown the galaxy their truth. And still, it wasn't enough. That night aboard the Odyssey, the crew gathered again. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Milo broke the silence. They don't hate us. They're afraid of becoming like us, Elira nodded. Because if they admit we're right, they have to change everything. Ryan looked at the stars. Then we give them one last chance. He didn't plan a speech. He didn't prepare a signal. He simply opened every channel, council, public, private, and transmitted one phrase. Not in one language, but in all of them at once. English, Mandarin, Arabic, Yoruba, Quechua, Hindi, Russian, Navajo. Hundreds of voices speaking the same words. You fear us because you've forgotten how to feel. The message lasted only 10 seconds. But it echoed through every ship, every station, every mind that heard it. On Xylos Prime, Vorthal the Unbending sat alone in the empty chamber long after the others had left. The speaker, who had not shed a tear in 10,000 years, felt something wet trail down its gelatinous form. It was not logic. It was memory. And for the first time, the galaxy wondered if silence was truly peace, or just the absence of courage. The Veil of Silence loomed like a storm on the edge of space. 48 hours remained before the Galactic Council would seal Earth away forever. The decision had been made in secret, pushed through by the Krell and backed by fearful minor factions. Even the Seleni, once open-minded, had fallen silent. Only Overseer Kalen had not voted, but their absence spoke louder than any protest. Aboard the Odyssey, Ryan Voss refused to accept defeat. He knew the Council wasn't evil. They were afraid, and fear once rooted was hard to pull out. But humans had spent centuries learning how to speak to fear, not with force but with presence. He called Earth, not for weapons, not for more voices, for something quieter. In Geneva, Dr. Lena Cho gathered a small team. They didn't prepare speeches or songs. They collected ordinary moments. A child tying their shoes, a baker kneading dough at dawn, an old man feeding pigeons in a park, a nurse holding a patient's hand during a long night. These weren't grand acts. They were small, human, and real. The team encoded them into a new kind of signal, one that carried not words but warmth. Meanwhile, Elira Tate studied the Veil's design. It wasn't a wall of energy. It was a fold in space-time, woven from ancient Vornax tech and council law. Once activated, it would bend light, sound, and thought away from Earth. Nothing could cross it, not even a whisper. But Elira noticed something strange. The Veil's activation required harmony among all council members. If even one refused to lend their biosignature, the ritual would fail. Rian saw his opening. He requested a final audience, not with the full council, but with each member individually. The request was denied at first. Then quietly Kalen intervened. One by one, the delegates agreed to meet. Rian didn't argue. He didn't plead. He simply sat with them. With the Krell delegate, he shared a recording of a human father teaching his son to ride a bike, falling, laughing, trying again. The reptilian envoy said nothing, but its tail stopped twitching in agitation. With the Seleni, he played a violin solo recorded in an empty subway station, raw, imperfect, full of longing. The crystalline beings chimed softly, their light shifting from cold blue to warm amber. With the Marathi, he showed footage of ants and humans working side by side in a flooded village. Different species, same goal. The insectoid counselor tilted its head, mandibles clicking in what might have been wonder. Each meeting lasted only minutes, but something shifted. Back on the Odyssey, Milo monitored the Veil's energy buildup. It's still charging, he said, but the resonance is unstable, like the council isn't fully united. Rian nodded. Good, then without warning, alarms blared. A massive energy surge erupted near Neptune. The Vornak station, thought destroyed, was reactivating. Not as a weapon, but as a beacon. It began broadcasting a new signal. A single, pure tone, empty of emotion, designed to override all other frequencies. The Vornaks weren't trying to control minds anymore. They were trying to erase noise itself. The tone spread like frost across space. Alien ships reported system glitches. Communication arrays went silent. Even the council chamber's lights dimmed. They're purging the galaxy of chaos, Elira said, eyes wide. Starting with us, Rian made a choice. He ordered the Odyssey to jump toward Neptune. Not to fight, to listen. As they approached the ice rings, the Vornak signal grew stronger. It wasn't loud. It was empty, a perfect silence that swallowed everything else. Milo's instruments went dark. Elira's comms crackled with static. Even Ryan's thoughts felt muffled, as if wrapped in thick cloth. Then Lena's team sent their final transmission, the ordinary moments of Earth life. At first, nothing happened. The Vornak's tone drowned it out, but Rian didn't give up. He opened every speaker on the Odyssey. He played a baby's first cry, a street musician's off-key guitar, a grandmother's shaky voice telling a story, rain on a rooftop, wind through trees, the sound of someone breathing after a long run. The Vornak signal faltered, because silence cannot exist where life insists on making noise. The Vornak station pulsed wildly, its perfect tone fractured under the weight of human imperfection. Cracks spread through its shell. Light bled out in jagged streaks. Then with a final shudder it collapsed, not in fire, but in quiet surrender. The galaxy exhaled, but the Veil still waited. Back on Xylos Prime, the council gathered for the final vote. The activation chamber glowed with soft light. Each delegate placed their hand on a crystal node, ready to seal Earth away. One by one, they hesitated. The Krell delegate remembered the father and son. The Seleni heard the violin. The Marathi saw the ants and humans working together. Even Vorthal the Unbending felt the echo of its own forgotten tears. When it came time to activate the Veil, no one moved. The ritual failed, not because of force, because of feeling. Rian watched from the Odyssey as the Veil's energy faded like a dying star. Earth remained open, not as a threat, not as a child, but as a neighbor. That night a message came from the council. Not an order, an invitation. The Reformed Council would meet in 1 week. Not to judge, to learn, and humanity would be at the table, not as defendants but as equals. Rian looked out at the stars and smiled. The real work was just beginning. The Reformed Council met not in the cold stone chamber of Xylos Prime, but aboard a neutral station orbiting a quiet star in the Lyra system. The walls were open to space, filled with living plants and soft light. There were no raised thrones, no obsidian doors, no judgment seats. Just a wide circle of chairs, some made of wood, others of woven light, some floating gently in place. Humanity had one of them. Rian Voss sat quietly, his hands resting on his knees. He wore no uniform, just a simple dark jacket. Across from him sat Vorthal the Unbending, its gelatinous form now glowing with a steady, warm pulse. To the left, the Krell delegate, once sharp and hostile, now leaned forward with something close to curiosity. Overseer Kalen hovered near the center, a soft swirl of light and shadow watching everything. This was not a trial. It was a beginning. The first order of business was not law or punishment. It was listening. Rian stood and played a recording, not of war or poetry, but of a rainy afternoon in Mumbai. Street vendors called out. Children splashed in puddles. A radio played an old film song. A dog barked. A motorbike sputtered and died. It lasted 3 minutes. When it ended, the chamber was silent, not from fear but from wonder. You call this noise, Ryan said gently. We call it life, the Selenite chimed softly. It has no structure. It has many, Ryan replied. Just not one you expected. Over the next days, the council did something it had never done before. It asked questions, not to trap but to understand. The Marathi wanted to know how humans made decisions without hive consensus. The Krell asked why humans helped strangers with no promise of return. Vorthal simply asked, how do you live with so much uncertainty? Ryan didn't give speeches. He told stories. He spoke of teachers who stayed in broken schools, of neighbors who shared food after disasters, of artists who painted on ruins. He explained that humans didn't seek perfection. They sought meaning, and meaning often grew in messy places. Meanwhile, back on Earth, changes were already happening. The Institute of Resonant Diplomacy opened in Geneva, not as a military project, but as a school. Alien students arrived, some nervous, some skeptical, all curious. They didn't learn to weaponize language. They learned to listen. A young Krell cadet practiced humming lullabies to calm his own aggression. A Selenite artist recorded the sound of ocean waves and wove it into crystal sculptures that sang in the wind. A Marathi linguist discovered that human silence between words carried as much meaning as the words themselves. Commander Alira Tate now led the Peaceweaver fleet. Her ships carried no weapons, only libraries, music archives, and open comms channels. When tensions rose between two alien colonies over water rights, she didn't send soldiers. She sent a jazz quartet and a team of mediators who spoke in rhythm, not demands. The conflict ended not with treaties, but with a shared meal and a song no one had heard before. Dr. Milo Renner and Dr. Lena Cho published the Universal Harmonic Codex, a living document that grew every time a new voice joined. It wasn't a rule book. It was a conversation. Written in hundreds of languages, human and alien, it changed daily. Some entries were poems. Others were recipes. A few were just laughter, recorded and shared. One evening, a young Marathi diplomat named Trell approached Rian on the station's observation deck. Trell's exoskeleton shimmered under the starlight. I still don't understand, they said, mandibles clicking softly. Why did you not conquer when you could have? You had the power. Rian looked out at Earth, a blue jewel in the dark. Because power isn't about making others obey. It's about giving them the space to choose. Trell was silent for a long time. Then they asked, can you teach me to speak like that? Ryan smiled. You already do. You just haven't listened to yourself yet. Weeks turned into months. The Reformed Council became a place of exchange, not enforcement. Trade resumed, not just of goods, but of ideas. Human films played in Krell cities. Selenite light symphonies filled Earth's concert halls. Marathi hive maps inspired new ways to organize cities without losing individuality. But the greatest change was quieter. Across the galaxy, beings began to speak differently, not to command but to connect. Arguments ended not with threats but with questions. Wars were prevented not by armies but by shared songs. One day, Rian received a message from a small colony on the edge of known space. A child half human, half Krell had written a story. It was about a star that learned to shine not by burning bright, but by reflecting the light of others. The child asked if it could be added to the codex. Rian approved it without hesitation. Years later, when new species joined the galactic community, they were not tested for strength or technology. They were asked one question. What do you sing when no one is listening? If they had an answer, any answer, they were welcomed. Humanity never became rulers. They became reminders that strength could be gentle, that chaos could create beauty, that the most powerful thing in the universe was not a weapon, but a voice willing to say, I'm here. Are you? And in the quiet moments between stars, the galaxy finally learned to listen.